Hi, you're listening to the Middle East AI News Live, Thursday Deep Dive, as a podcast. Today I've invited Supreet Singh Manchanda, founding partner of Raiven Capital, to talk to us about Raiven Capital's new $125 million tech fund. Thursday Deep Dive normally airs at 1 p.m. UAE time on Thursdays, live on LinkedIn, and breaks down trending AI and emerging tech news and trends from the Middle East and North Africa, and brings in expert guests from business, technology, and government to discuss key initiatives and events. Tune in every Thursday, 12 noon KSA, 1 p.m. UAE, 9 a.m. GMT. You'll also find more details at www.middleeastainews.com. In today's Thursday Deep Dive, we're going to be talking to Silicon Valley and Toronto-based technology fund manager Raiven Capital, which is just registered in Dubai International Financial Centre, or DIFC. Raiven Capital specializes in investing in early-stage tech startups and has just launched a $125 million venture capital fund in DIFC. The new fund will invest in early-stage startups from the Middle East, North Africa, East Africa, and South Asia. I'm going to be joined by Silicon Valley-based Supreet Singh Manchanda, who is founding partner and managing director of Raiven Capital, to talk to us about Raiven Capital's new Dubai-registered fund. With a long technology track record that includes stints at IBM, CA, and KPMG, plus investment and venture building firms, Supreet co-founded Raiven Capital in 2018. He served on the boards of more than 30 startups and has brought 25 products and services to market across multiple industries globally. So a warm welcome to Middle East AI News Live, Thursday Deep Dive, Supreet Singh Manchanda. Thanks for making the time to join us and tell us more about Raiven Capital and our new DIFC registered tech fund.
Oh, it's very nice to be there with you. I really enjoyed our small conversation last week, but it's really nice to follow up today.
Well, I'm hoping we can go into a little bit more depth and have a little more relaxed chat. So this is Raiven Capital's first fund registered in DIFC. And it's quite recent news as well, isn't it?
Yeah, we just announced it. Of course, it's been a couple of years in the making. As you can imagine, it's regulated by the DFSA. We're in the DIFC, which we're very proud to be there. And we're of a size and scale, I think, that's going to at least garner some attention. It's really important. And while it's our first fund in the Raiven DIFC is our first fund in Dubai, we're not first-time managers. We've done this before. I've been in Silicon Valley for, since 95, and a long time, and gone through the ups and downs and learnings of Silicon Valley. My partner, business partner, Paul Dugson, has been in the Toronto ecosystem, and both of them are what we'd call more mature ecosystems, and yet quite a lot of innovation comes out of there. And what we enjoy very much is meeting founders and really helping build ecosystems.
Yes, and you've got partners all around the world, I think.
Yes, branch all the way Singapore, India, Nairobi. So Singapore, Chandigarh in India, Nairobi, Paris, Stockholm. Then you just keep going west all the way to Vancouver, with Silicon Valley and even in Latin America. We're very unique we think, or we didn't used to think so until people started telling us this is very unusual. So I don't know if you know, but less than 2% of partners in venture funds are women.
Right.
50% of ours are women, and less than a ridiculously small amount. It's, I think, moved in the last 2 years, but even then, it's in the single digits of investment is with women founders now. And we have 30% of ours are women founders. Now, we didn't start out being that way. We started out looking for the most interesting founders who were doing amazing things, and and their competence was very high, and they just happened to be women. But at that bonus of bringing people who can think with a different mindset that allows for a different mentality, so in many cases stops us men from doing herd mentality behavior. And then
Absolutely.
the other piece that's really interesting is that of our 13 partners across the globe, not a single one of them is just one culture. So they're born in one culture, lived in another culture, educated in yet another culture, many times across the globe. And that diversity is also very unique because when you see funds, like Silicon Valley, for example, Sand Hill Road is, everything happens within 20 miles of it, and sometimes can be quite myopic. But here we've got a global outlook. We bring in a diversity. And actually, the neatest part about this is we come to Dubai and we feel at home because that's how our DNA is, because Dubai is such a global melting pot, amalgam of all kinds of cultures and relationships and everything. And we actually are like, oh, we like this place. This is where people are like us. Everybody is from somewhere else. Everybody is multicultural. Everybody's got a global outlook. And yet you've got to be aware of the regional nuances, and you've got to be aware of where's the ecosystem, how do we build it. And we are very proud of helping build ecosystems because we think that's a unique strength. You get to know the needs of a people, the needs of customers by being there and not by being drop in, drop out type people.
Yes, yes. And there has been a lot of global interest from the venture capital sector in Dubai. And I think we have more than 200 venture capital funds at the moment. And obviously in the past year or 18 months, there's been a lot of interest from venture capital funds to come here and fundraise because the dynamics of the Gulf region have been a little bit different from the US or Europe. So what trends and opportunities led you to come and create this fund in Dubai?
Well, so because we're not afraid to be global, and we have a DNA that is global. So I'm Indian born, but I grew up in Africa. I'm British, French educated, and then went to the United States and have done, lived across the globe, Ireland, Taiwan, you name it, and we are not afraid of helping ecosystems grow. So think of it on a continuum. Africa, in particular, if you take away, but let's say Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, the three interesting nexus points. But between them, that's where a majority of innovation, and maybe you could even add Egypt to that. But let's say North Africa and then sub-Saharan Africa is growing very, very interestingly. But that's an emerging ecosystem. And then or nascent ecosystem, and then you come to a place like Dubai and Abu Dhabi and all of the UAE and the GCC, the regional area, and some are in the nascent ecosystem, and others are more advanced. Like Dubai, we think is actually more advanced up the continuum as an emerging ecosystem. Already has good regulations, has a economic free zone. They've tried to lower the barriers of bureaucracy because that really is the distinction of how do you create speed. The velocity a company needs, and you notice I distinguish that between speed. The velocity a company needs, the speed to be able to execute, and the reduction of barriers from a bureaucratic standpoint that allow it to, one, get launched with a minimum of effort, but two, then enable to grow, whether it's using tech or non-tech. Mostly we're a tech VC, so we look at the tech, where it's got intellectual property that's defensible, and in an ecosystem where the laws are such that you can actually protect that intellectual property and not have people just run roughshod over you. And so we thought this is that marriage of new world innovation at a much lower cost, which founders need for longer runway, and old, more mature systems, regulations, and legal protections, and being able to set up proper entities and have that guardianship or governance that the more mature systems have established. And here's Dubai, it's got both. And it becomes a place where we are actually bringing companies from Africa, from South Asia, from Eastern Europe, and innovating. We look for these founders, and we really like what we can bring to Dubai. And of course, Dubai is the magic of Dubai is that everybody wants to come there.
Yeah, absolutely. And the UAE and Dubai in particular has worked very hard to create that environment where there is that confidence in the regulation. There's the openness to let people come into the country globally and find work and set up business. So it's a melting pot. And then, of course, in the last 5 years, you've had this big growth in the startup ecosystem with much more diversification of the services and the support offered to those different startups from different sectors, and funding for startups from different sectors as well. So another question I would have is, are you inclined to invest in one particular industry area or sector of technology, or are you agnostic?
So let's build a layer system. So if you think of this as a giant box, what do you have fundamental change coming from 3 technological areas? The very basement of that, the very foundation of that is connectivity. So as technological advancement reach to where we have 5G and then beyond 5G, the 6, etc. Well, what is happening is there is no longer a latency between transmission and reception. And that is made when information becomes instantaneous across the planet. That's the first hurdle that we're crossing. So think of that as the first layer, the telecom layer. That's been enabled. That's made your communication. You're in Dubai, I'm sitting in Silicon Valley, Paul is sitting in Toronto, someone is sitting in Singapore, and here we are we get on Zoom calls, and it's as if we're sitting in the same room. We can look at each other, we can see what we're working on. That reduction of latency is the first play. That play enables people to dialogue, communicate, share, and most importantly, transact together across the planet. Then the next layer of that are new technologies. There's a lot of hype between generative AI, but let's just say AI in general, because if you can break it down into machine learning, pattern recognition, to machine learning, to actual then having content creation and beyond, eventually decision-making systems. There's a wonderful person who's on our board named Jim Cates, and he came up with this ladder of business intelligence as a theory, business theory, and it works really well because you go from unstructured data, spreadsheets, etc., to intuition. And with AI, this was the missing piece. AI then brings you the ability to take decisions from, up till now, you've had machines that come together to speed up the process, but no decision making. Humans do the decision making. Now there's, with AI, rudimentary decision making and frameworks and construction. That's helping create brand new avenues, industries. I think take old industries and transform them into new ones. And that's going to be the next revolution. So that's the point of the spear that leads into the next, the wave of innovation. Couple that, of course, with the Internet of Things, because that's where the sensors are. So if your sensor is with the customer, here's an example. I'm doing e-commerce, I'm Amazon, and you're sitting in Dubai and you're buying, and the moment you hit the buy signal on your phone, that sensor on your phone is letting Amazon know that you completed a transaction or you performed a transaction or you're looking at something. And then there's a sensor that's going to, the NFC chip says, okay, pay. And what that is doing is that creates that feedback loop for the transaction to actually be fully consummated. And so if you notice that these 2 giant technologies coming in, one initiating system-to-system communication, and 2, a feedback loop that allows for improvement or recommunication or validation, think of it that way. So all payment systems are being built this way. It allows for a non-human intervention, a way of building ecosystems and intellectual property. So smart manufacturing, if you think of smart e-commerce, and then the transactions that go with smart payment systems, these will start becoming automatic, and the multiple steps it takes will get reduced down to a few. And our thesis across all sectors is, how do you reduce latency and money stuck in supply chains, value chains, to actually extract the value? And these will be the complex problems the founders are going to solve. We think that will enable this in a lubricated manner for hypervelocity, and as a result, new markets, new products, new services, and actually innovation that we can't even think of right now. And we're banking on the next generation to be able to do this stuff when you couple all this stuff. That being said, let's talk about the sectors. Of course, in the GCC, UAE, and everywhere, food security, water security are national security. And so we focus on that. We're already bringing companies into the GCC that are doing interesting things. We have a very interesting company that has made a product that if you drink it, and it tastes like sparkling water, and it's already in the market, and it will reduce your glycemic content by half, especially if you do it right before you eat a meal. And as you can see, when you have a population that has a propensity for diabetes, as a lot of the South Asian and Mideast populations do, that will be a game changer on healthcare. And so we're bringing a company like that to Dubai. Couple that with, companies that are doing sensors, a needle-less glucose testing, for example. So you start seeing an innovation that is starting to help people and directly helps the population and creates a new test bed for across the globe. The fun thing I love about Dubai is it's the globe in miniature. So you can test all kinds of things across many myriads of cultures and stuff in many sectors. And you're not doing this across the whole planet. You're doing it in a small managed ecosystem. And if it works there, we know it's going to work in many places. Of course, we're investing in cybersecurity. We're investing in food tech. We're investing in ag tech. So, the sustainabilities. We're also investing in new payment systems. We're investing in how do you do smart manufacturing? How do you make production work? With the digital transformation, how do you create digital transformation so you can create twins of manufacturing processes and model and simulate them? So the factory doesn't need to take 5 years to get set up, can be set up in 1 year. And these are just the beginning baby steps of what we're doing.
Right. So it's cutting edge technology, but it could be across multiple sectors, as you mentioned.
Cutting edge technology across multiple sectors, solving real world problems to make life easier.
Do you work with startup ecosystems, accelerators, and what have you in this region or elsewhere?
Yeah, we're talking to everybody. We like talking to interesting stuff, interesting innovators. I have, for the last 5 years, been involved as help set up the Innovate stage with the Arab Health. So pretty much every healthcare startup that presents out there, I get to see. And we do two things. So it's not just see and invest, it's also mentor. And as we build these ecosystems with our partners, with the different companies across the region, we're also asking them, have you thought about this? This works in this mature ecosystem in Silicon Valley. So we're bringing Silicon Valley knowledge and saying, and we do it in a different way. We don't come and say, we did it over there, and we have this what works. But actually the high value knowledge is what didn't work. These are the lessons learned from trying to do the work we did and it failed, because we don't want people to repeat the failures if we already have learned the lesson. It's, why don't we leapfrog that failure and actually get to a different success? Of course, we'll create new failures, we'll create new innovation, experimentation, but that's what innovation is. You try, you see if it works, and you move forward.
Will there be any requirement for ventures to register in the UAE as a condition of funding, for example?
Well, I think if you think about most companies that come to the UAE are coming because of it's a great place to find people that can work for them. They're turning out that across the globe, there's a huge labor shortage post-COVID. We found that we really do need good people in different ecosystems that have the experience set. And Dubai is a very good point where people are coming. The draw of that Dubai has created with the wonderful story they have and the reality of a safe place where everybody's welcome, where you can get investment is very, very appealing to a lot of founders. You register in Dubai in a different way, and think of it, they have to set up in Dubai. The government has gone to such great lengths to create accelerators. If you think of Abu Dhabi and in Dubai, the DIFC, the innovation hub in the DIFC is such a great ecosystem to be in. A lot of wonderful startups sitting together, co-creating things, talking to each other, learning from each other, and couple this with the incentives that are given. There's a lot of incentives, and this is where we think the government is doing the Dubai authority, Abu Dhabi authorities are doing this right. They allow you to, they actually give you money, but they give you more than money. They give you a space you can co-locate to. They give you places where, like the Innovation Hub, a great place, and everything is right there. So you don't have to, run across all over Dubai to find things. It's all there. And that brings about a very interesting energy. So if you walk into I love walking through Dubai, the gate, I usually walk from one end to the other and walk back to get my exercise. But beyond that, I'm saying hello to people. I'm talking to people. Who are you? Where are you from? What are you doing? Oh, that's an interesting idea. Oh, that's an interesting solution. Or, have you tried it this other way? And that dialogue, and the advantage of wearing a turban as I stand out. So I get recognized and people are like, hey, it's Supreet, how are you? What's cooking? What are you guys doing now? And that ability, it's easy to do that in Dubai. It's easy to do that over there. And so coming there, registering, getting yourself set up, it has great value. Beyond just if you just set up a company somewhere in some strip mall, it's actually coming to places where the ecosystem will actually feed you with positive energy, with hyper, smart people that are thinking. And, there are no easy problems to solve. Those have been done. You've got apps, a bazillion of them. Now the problems are complex problems. Cross-border payment systems, for example, to do e-commerce, cross-border e-commerce, logistics problems. How do I, in a very short period of time, get my product across 2 or 3 different countries, across their custom zones, and still be able to give it to the customer on time when they want? These are just 2 simple examples that come to mind. But you think of hyper-personalization is going to happen. I'm going to be able to order on demand the type of clothing with the color, with the cut, with the shape, built to me. Already there's companies that are, men's suiting companies, women's clothing companies where you can order this, what I call pseudo bespoke. It's cut to you. You give them your measurements, they cut it to you. It's very interesting to see that kind of innovation. And especially I was walking through DIFC a couple of months ago, and there's this woman, and she set up her boutique, and I was like, you have very little inventory. Oh, she said, these are just samples. You come in here, we measure you with a laser, and then we show you all these styles, and based on that, we'll tell you what works. And then in 3 days, the whole thing will come, and then you come back in and try it out. And then we've got a tailor on site who will do minor adjustments to make you look good. And I was like, that's really cool. But on demand, so it's custom for you. And similar, we'll have hyper-personalization in medicine. Once people know your DNA, then they'll be able to custom a solution based on your particular needs. And so this kind of stuff we find it cannot be done ad hoc in areas. This is what Silicon Valley's done. This is what Toronto has done. This is what almost all startup ecosystems, Singapore's done very nicely, is they create these zones. And in these zones, you put all this great energy, and three things, if you think that have led that DIFC is doing right. It's a free zone, so the regulations. Two, they've made it easy for companies to come there. Three, there's incentive programs. And four, with the co-location, you meet all these founders and that energy, and then they put all these classes together so you can go. If as a VC, you can come and teach, as we do, or as a founder, you can go listen to different ideas. And that's the chemistry. That's the alchemy, almost, is the word I'd like to use, that creates the innovation.
And DIFC is certainly vibrant. They've now got hundreds of startups. They put the work in. It was, I think, the first specialized startup ecosystem to be started in the region back in 2017. And they have very ambitious plans. And I think they have the trust there because everybody's seen them execute over the last few years. And they've seen that ecosystem grow and develop and become this great thing.
It's every time I'm there, and whether I'm gone for a week or I'm gone for a couple of months, I come back and new faces, new companies. And of course, there's the churn. Some companies have grown big enough that they can go get their own other location and they're doing production, and others are right at the idea stage and innovating and ideating and trying to get themselves up. What I love is that they don't say you have to have this little criteria and you must fit inside our box. They say, here's the place, come and be you. And that allows people to really expand their creativity in that space. And and that's why we're there. That's frankly, we love that energy so much. That's why we're there. We're out there and we love talking to people. And that the advantage of that also is there's no dearth of deals. We're not looking for deals. The deals are there. The rest is, do they meet the criteria we have for investment? And then how do we mentor? Many times what we do is we help founders grow with us.
So since you've touched on that, can you walk through what your process is and how you you take investment in startups and bring them on board and support them?
Absolutely. So let's talk about founders, and we look for, of course, you've got to set up a company, you've got to set up your proper entity so it's registered, so it's legal. So you're doing the right governance things from the start, and the DIFC is good about helping you do that. But what Raiven we look at in particular when we start our due diligence, first and foremost, we want to meet founders, and we call this the 4 C's. They've got to have curiosity. They've got to be solving a problem that exists today. Too often, Silicon Valley is full of these either zombie companies or carcasses of dead companies where it was a solution in search of a problem rather than we're solving a problem. Look at this. And it may be a complex problem and may need to be broken up into pieces, and it may take time. But then there's a vision to grow and the curiosity this is a really interesting problem. I have customers that complain about this, or have potential customers that complain about this. And look, if I solve this problem, I'll be able to serve them with these kind of solutions. So that curiosity is first. Secondly, we have to have chemistry with the founder. Many times you meet a myriad of people, and the really important thing is the chemistry. And if you don't have the chemistry, what happens is you're not able to create dialogue. You're not able to do what if. You're not able to really talk. And not everybody gets along with everybody, and we understand that. But that's a key component to us with our founders. They have to bring competency. They must be skilled in that. You can't just be the days of, I thought of an idea and I'm going to go see how to do it are gone, sadly. You really need to have the competency to know because the problem is complex. If you don't understand the complexity of it, you won't be able to solve it. And in order to do that, you have to. So we end up looking at founders. They may be young, but they've actually spent time immersed in something like, for example, Web 3.0. You look at all of the stuff, the metaverses and all. All the people in there are young, but they're very deep into the gaming, industry, for example. It's because they have depth, they've been immersed in it. And then the last piece, which we think is a unique distinction, is they must be coachable.
Right.
In Silicon Valley, the trend is, or the statistic that comes out is, a startup may be pivoting up to 3 to 5 times. The market changes, a bigger company creates a solution that you were working on, and everything changed. The customer decided, oh, actually, we don't want one of those, we want something else. And if you're not coachable, where you won't listen to your investors, your partners, your customers, then what happens is that stubbornness usually leads to failure. And so curiosity, chemistry, competency, and coachability are the 4 C's that we go. And of course, with that, we do the diligence of, did you actually set up your company? Are you registered? Do you have proper financial? And many times, proper financial, it may be that your receipts are in a shoebox, but you've also got the spreadsheet said, this is what I'm spending, this is where my money is, this is who's investing, this is, and many places, and the DIFC included, will give you the toolkit. So you don't have an excuse to say, well, I don't know where that is. And so if you're going to be a leader, you have to lead, and you have to have that toolkit to build that. And we don't talk down to our founders. Many times we're learning from them as much as they're learning from us. And we call our founders our partners, because long-term, we are going to put in capital and knowledge and bring maybe access to markets. Those are three bridges we build: the bridge of capital, the bridge of knowledge, technical knowledge, market knowledge. But most importantly is, okay, how do you make your business run? And then how do you go embrace new markets? How do you penetrate them? And that's why we have partners all over the globe. They're global, but they're very local. They're deep partners who have been immersed in the local ecosystem. So our partner in Singapore has been in Singapore for 25 years, and yet is global. And they bring that knowledge to our startups, and then they are able to coach and guide and direct them to create, at the end of their success. And in the startup world, the startup that survives the longest usually is the most successful. It may be it's not the sexiest technology, but it's the one that has longevity. And so while we love tech, I'm a geek at heart, I'm an engineer, but there are many times where we're like, well, is the customer going to buy that? Or is that too complicated for the customer? You and I and everybody in the world has always bought those VCRs. Remember VCRs and DVD players, and almost every gadget we had a myriad of buttons and functions, and yet it was play, stop, record, rewind, forward. Those was actually what you used. And so
right.
Think of, how do I make this simple for the customer? How do I make it accessible? How do I make it usable? And the neat part in Dubai is, how do I do this across cultures, across languages, across, people's different perceptions? And you're able to solve that. You're actually doing this at a global level, just in a small microcosm.
So all of these startups would be early stage?
Yes, and we're an early stage tech fund. Now, we do what we call a dumbbell approach of investing. We do a lot of early stage, and maybe opportunistically we look at some growth stage if we think its valuation is at a point where it'll give us a lift in our fund. That is typical. Many funds do that, but we like the after many places, institutions, universities are at the very early idea, or at the research stage. We're beyond that. We're at the what we call post MVP or MVP stage. You've figured out your minimal viable product. You've figured out a set that a customer is going to readily buy, or use, and you're out there ready to go hit the market. Because we think that's the inflection point where your intellectual property actually gets locked in. We like that thing. It's also the stage. There's a lot of startups pre that stage, and I think 10 people will come up with the idea. 2 of them will execute on it. Of the 2, if you expand this out to 1,000 people, for example, you will end up with 20 that are doing it, and out of the 20. Maybe 5 of them will actually build an MVP. So there's a natural filtering process, but also there's a process of what we call resiliency. This allows people to have the staying power to make it there, and it's a natural test. It allows us also to focus on our companies with a we roll up our sleeves and almost work hand in hand with them. We're not just board meetings, but many times we're helping them build tech strategy. We're helping kick doors with customers, doing proof of concept evaluations. We're helping them open markets, and that's an important piece because there are many VCs who will give you money and forget. And they have a different metric. We have a different metric because we like that early stage. It's more, what's a good, rough and tumble. It's less formulaic. It's a lot of trying to get to know people and, more importantly, get to suss out the proper customer and do it right. And frankly, that's what I've done in Silicon Valley and other places across the globe. And I'm comfortable in the chaos, in that chaos, as we call it. Yeah, and being comfortable in that chaos is also where the opportunity exists. It allows we take risk because we get to know and use the technology in our favor, and that's a very important part.
And if I flip that round for a second, where do you stop? What's the latest stage that you would consider investing in?
So I think beyond Series B, which is all about growth and scaling up, and really. By the time you get to Series C, it's really about market penetration. You're leaving one geography to go to expand to another geography, and it's all about growth. And we think by that time the IP is set and everything, and very rarely do we stay in that. Yeah, it's very, by that time you're looking at markets, sometimes public markets or acquisition. And while I've done one of those, and so has Paul, we like this early stage. So by that time, post Series B, think of it that way. We're usually out. We like this early stage. It's where we create the most amount of value with our founders together.
And it's the most fun.
It is fun. I mean, there are times when I pull my hair out, but it is fun. We was just talking to a company that, had commitment for a customer order, and then all of a sudden last minute the customer had a hiccup and now the order's going bye, and so everybody's scrambling, and it was very interesting new tech that was going to be partnered. So last minute we're scrambling with the customer and we're saying, well, okay, so we'll make this pilot work this way, not that way. And of course everybody's, running up and down with their hair on fire, but if it works out eventually, it's like, okay, that was really interesting. The other thing, one thing that many VCs don't do, or if they do it not as well as they should, because we're operators, we're former operators, we've built projects, we've done product development and product market fit in real life scenarios where we built products. We also build that feedback loop to really say, what did the customer say? And what are you hearing? And how can that change version 2 or version 3 so that what you're doing is always targeting on the customer and what their needs are. So you're doing this right. Too often you get a lot of VCs who will give the money initially and then they'll write it off too quickly. Now, maybe that's a bad thing, but we stay with our founders to hold their hand enough because we know you might go through a pivot. Even if you don't go through a pivot, you have to, if we have faith in them, and that's why we come to them and then we hold their hand through stuff. In our fund in Canada, which started in 2018 and we just closed it, we have 10 investments. Most people will have 20, 30. We have 10. But here's the neat part. None of our 10 are failing. All of our 10 are at the second round. They're post MVP. They're doing the next round, Series A. 6 of them are already funded in Series A and already at a point where we're like, oh, these look like good companies now. Now they look stable. They're starting to show the metrics of someone who's grown up, and that we like. So that's the difference. But
Fantastic.
We're very, very, very hands-on. We like working with our founders. Many times we'll go and park ourselves in their offices and say, all right, we've got a desk over here and we're sitting with you and we're listening to stuff and we're getting the vibe and then helping out. And of course, when resources are tight, having people who roll up their sleeves either in tech strategy or marketing strategy or building up the operations really is helpful. That's an extra set of hands and brains to help them succeed.
And you're covering quite a wide area geographically from Dubai. I think you mentioned North Africa, East Africa, Southwest Asia, and the Middle East. Who are you interested to hear from, and how would they contact you?
Easy. We have an email, info@raivencapital.com. You can email me, or also you can email Supreet@raivencapital.com. You can go to our website, which is raivencapital.com, and you'll be able to see, what we're doing, who we are. In our big area, we also have other partners. So it's not just Paul and myself, even though we are the founding partners. There are local partners, and as we meet companies and talk to them, many times you'll also have a local partner who's there as well as a global partner. So many times we do multi-tiered mentoring. There's a local partner that's telling about the local ecosystem and everything and helping with operations. And there's a global partner who gives oversight, who's looking at the whole thing and saying, does this fit? Does it work? So it's really important.
And you're interested to hear from founders working with cutting edge technology who solve complex problems. Are there any other types of professionals or institutions or systems that you want to hear from?
We love working with institutions. We love incubators and accelerators. We'd love to partner with as many of them as possible. And that's a very important piece of creating that relationship. Many times they'll feed us with deals and companies, and we'll feed the other ones, as our companies mature, we'll feed them to others. And so that's really important. And of course, we just announced a new fund, and investors. We always welcome investors. We'll always take your money.
Absolutely. Supreet, thank you so much for joining me on Thursday Deep Dive to share more details about Raiven Capital's new fund. Wishing you the best of luck, and I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun.
This has been loads of fun. Anytime you want us back to talk, and in a few months, I bet you we'll be able to even showcase some companies.
And that's all we've got time for today. Thanks so much for joining us on Thursday Deep Dive. Thanks to my guest, Supreet Singh Manchanda, for a great discussion. And hope to see you all again on next week's Thursday Deep Dive live via LinkedIn. Goodbye.